Hi, everyone. I welcome you all to this episode of Redefining Self. Um, so, today we're going to be talking about beliefs and values, mainly those beliefs and values that we hold on to. Maybe we've picked them up when we're growing up, perhaps we were taught them by family, and how those will affect us later on. Sometimes when we go into relationships, not sometimes, probably every time we go into relationships, marriages, we have those beliefs that we hold on to, and we want to see how that um, serves us or whether it's still serving us at all. So today with me, I've got Stephanie. Stephanie is a psychotherapist, and we're going to have this discussion. I'm so excited to have you on this show, Stephanie. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you so much. I'm so excited. I'm so very excited to be here to talk about this. Your audience is primarily African descent, Black, right?
Yes,
Right,
yes,
yeah.
yes.
Well, I'm so excited to share it within the Black platform for Black audiences as well, because although I found this in many cultures, I think it just isn't something that is discussed very much or even challenged very much in the African cultures, and it's just accepted as the norm.
Yes, yes, yeah. That's really something that also drove me into doing this, because with my work I do work with all different cultures, but especially the multicultural communities. I have worked with people from the Western background as well, but for this, I think, like you mentioned, it's never mentioned enough in the African culture. So, you find most of the times women saying, "Oh, I lost myself in that relationship," or whether it was a marriage, and they say they've lost themselves. What are some of the beliefs that people have concerning relationships and marriages, that lead to women losing themselves?
I think when we speak about just women, I think it's a universal belief that when you get chosen, whether to be in a relationship, whether it's married or de facto, you are honored that way, right? So your value is directly linked to somebody choosing you. I think it's more so to women. It's almost like entrenched in our genetics, because we start to believe that we have that sense of belief from the moment we're in high school, and somehow we learn that a boy's supposed to ask us out, or if if people aren't giving us attention or aren't choosing us, and somehow we're not really valued. So once our value is linked or connected into how we are seen by an external object, external person, man in particular, there's no time really to really get to know yourself, is there? There's no time to really get to have or even value your preference, what you want, what you like to do, what you don't like to do, because you still have to really think, whether it's conscious or unconscious, you still have to think on how you're going to adjust yourself in order to be looked at or to be chosen.
Yeah, yeah.
Right.
Oh, that's pretty interesting, really. Yeah, because I've seen that a lot, a lot in my culture, that, sometimes, especially when I was growing up,
Oh,
I
you're
had
frozen.
this.
You're frozen, you know.
Oh, is it frozen? Can you hear me now? It's probably, I don't know what's happening.
Yeah, you froze a little bit there for a minute. You stopped at, you saw it, you've seen it a lot in your culture when you were growing up.
Okay, yeah. So, yeah, I've seen that a lot in my culture. Like when I was growing up, there was this thing where you have you have like a time limit. It's like you set a time limit for yourself that I have to be married by this age, or at least someone has to look at me somehow, otherwise, maybe something is wrong with me. So yeah, it is pretty interesting. Then with that pressure, blood pressure from the social norms just pushes you into any kind of relationship really, because you want
Yeah.
to make your family proud, you know, and you want to. I don't know. So it's like it's
Like you want to feel accepted, you
accepted
want to
that
be,
complete
and that is
woman.
and that is a biological, it is biological, it's scientific. So
Yeah,
it's a biological drive to survive for women,
yeah, yeah,
right? So as social beings and living organism, we want, the way that we see ourselves is based on the way others sees us, right? And
yeah,
men do it too, but
yeah,
when we're talking about women, and with men is done differently, but when we're talking about women here, a lot of it is taught from generation to generation. These are things that are laid in front of us way before we existed,
yeah,
and it's been here and it's always really going to be here.
yeah,
So my goal is never really to change society. My goal is for the individual themselves who choose to change it once they had enough of it and they see that it doesn't work, it's no longer working for them,
yeah,
to focus on them and changing them, not wanting, it doesn't suit me to go out to my aunties or like my mother's side of the family, the women's side of my family, and say, I don't want you guys if you change. That's not practical. It's not going to work if you're
yeah,
not
sure,
ready for the
yes.
change.
Mm.
So the individual woman has to be ready for that transformation.
Yeah, yeah. I remember when I had a chat with you the other day, you mentioned something that was pretty interesting, which I feel, we find it across a lot of cultures. When you mentioned that within the Congolese culture, when a man marries you, that's regarded as he's honored your family.
Is honored
And
you and your
yeah.
family. Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, yeah. So, what would possibly come up with because of that belief? Like looking at mainly in abusive relationships, because I kind of feel when someone um, says or when someone believes that they've honored you and your family, it kind of creates an expectation there that I've done this big
automatically
thing for you.
automatically unconscious or conscious, it
Yeah.
automatically expect and create an expectation there. They want you to behave in a certain way, and some of them, yeah, is overt. Some men are very overt in the
Mm.
way that they express that. So is the family. They're
Mm.
very overt. Okay, we've paid for you. These are some of the languages that I've heard used in my community,
Mm.
Congolese community. They will say, we've paid money, we've honored her, we've paid money to marry her. So,
Mm.
why are you eating in restaurants every night? Right? For that, right?
Yeah,
Or
yeah,
why is she out without did you authorize for her to be out? So these are just these little languages, right? Did you
yeah,
authorize
yeah,
for her
yeah.
to be out? Did you things like it's been 12 months, like the mother-in-law would come in, it's been 12 months, where's the baby? We've honored her, we've paid the money. So
Yeah.
So is this a property that and I understand when it probably did have a place
Yeah.
back there somewhere, but for a woman of the 21st century to walk into an institution of marriage as a almost childlike, right? Because if you look at the tradition of father giving their daughter away in a marriage, it dates back to fathers who was so responsible for that child,
Yeah. Yeah.
raised that child in a certain way and prepared her to then hand her the responsibility over to the man who will look after her. But in this day and age, that's not the case. That's not the case. Everybody's working. Everybody's an earner. And
Yeah.
most of the time when you marry that woman, the father is not supporting her financially. In fact, she may be supporting the father financially, right?
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
right. And so I mean, for those who want to carry on the tradition, for those that still hold sentimental meaning or feelings towards it, go ahead. Like, life is your oyster. You can do whatever you
It's
like.
always about choice, isn't it?
It's your choice. You're your
Yeah.
own master. You can do whatever you like. But I'm just, for those who are having difficulties in terms of navigating it, like you kind of want that tradition, but there's certain things about that makes you a little bit uncomfortable. When it look, it's always working, or it's not a problem until it becomes a problem, right? From the moment that becomes a problem for you,
Yeah.
then maybe you might have to reassess.
Yeah. Yeah. I do feel though, I remember you mentioned about transition, some people not being comfortable transitioning from that kind of mindset. Um, no, so my concern is about those that are in abusive relationships where someone believes that they have paid for you and they believe they've got this they believe somehow you're their possession and they can do whatever they want with you, whatever you yourself require doesn't matter, but you are there to serve them. Like you mentioned, people will be asking why are you eating in a restaurant? You've paid for someone. It's kind of like it's now her
Well,
duty.
they don't say you pay for someone, they say you're married. It's not quite harsh as that.
Well, I have heard in some cases where they actually do say, I've paid in my culture we call it lobola. So
Yeah.
yeah, so someone will be like, I paid lobola, you paid lobola for this woman, and it's been 1 year or it's been 2 years, like you say, where's the baby? It becomes like that family where your husband comes from. When he pays lobola, it's like the whole clan possesses you. You are the possession for the whole clan.
Yeah,
Like
some cultures they say you don't marry the man, you marry the family.
the family.
Yeah.
Yeah, so you find that kind of mindset. There are times where maybe the husband is being emotionally abusive or he's been physically abusive, and you go to these aunties, and what they want to protect is that he paid lobola, so you need to fix yourself. You need to, you're doing something wrong, maybe that's why
You
he.
need to comply. You need to
Yeah,
comply with
exactly.
what? Because he's within his right to demand of you whatever it is that he's demanding of you.
Yeah.
So yeah, and yeah, and that's what, yeah, and that's the suggestions. That's the implication.
Hmm.
But I would say for that, if I'm working with a client who's feeling like that, I would say
Hmm.
you first
Hmm.
you have to be the first person to eradicate or to have a shift in perception right? That it's not right,
Yeah.
and not ask the people who you know have an opposition opinion to agree with you.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah,
Right.
that's a great insight there. Yeah.
Right. And you know that they'll have that. So if when you first come to that realization, don't ask anybody, including your husband, to understand or agree with you, especially if it's saying the other thing.
Mm.
I mean, you can try to see if he sees things differently, but if he doesn't see things differently, or if they don't see things differently, don't insist that they see things differently.
Yeah. Yeah.
And from that, and that I would say is the first step that
Mm.
I would ask people to
Mm.
do. You have to, and also have a different of opinion. I married to a man who paid lobola for me, and therefore I should be X, Y, and Z. Do you share the same belief? Do you still share the same belief? If you don't share the same belief, then that is the first step for change, for transformation. And
Yeah.
then seek more information of what do you then believe? And you may
Mm.
not have the answer straight away.
Mm.
Or how would you like it to be? Will be my next question.
So it all comes down to the individual, isn't it?
Absolutely.
But is there any hope though? For because you find, some women are in this situation, and but then you find that it's so hard. Like they find it so hard to change from these social norms. They're still
Mm-hmm.
thinking, what will people say? And
Yeah.
they're deeply rooted in these
Mm-hmm.
beliefs. Is there any
Mm-hmm.
hope for?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And the first would be to have that awareness first that
Yeah.
I am currently uh, imprisoned by other people's opinion. That's the
Mm.
first awareness that
Yeah.
you have.
Yeah.
At least you know where you're at in that moment. I wouldn't say to like there's so many quotes out there, don't care what other people, it's not as easy as that, right? First there's an awareness.
Yeah.
First comes there's an awareness that I am in prison. I'm imprisonated by other people's thoughts and belief. And
Mm.
then you start to, but you may need a coach, you may need a therapist, you may need something, or even if it's just you journaling to really unravel that, to really go into deep in those thoughts. Why am I, and why, really unraveling that to kind of get a better understanding of your own psyche, of what's going on in there, because
Yeah.
thoughts aren't necessarily our own thoughts that we create. They are out there in the ether. There's so many of us who share the same thoughts. It doesn't
Yeah.
mean that they belong to us personally. The trouble
Mhm.
is that we think because it's in our head, it must be true, or we have to believe it because it's in our head, right?
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
it isn't. It's just, it's, you hear it through, you could be hearing this opinion from a television show. You could hear it because when you're falling asleep and you're overhearing your aunties and your moms and your grandmother talk when you were kids. All of this has been, the brain is such a massive storage. All of this is being stored. So you don't really know exactly where these thoughts come from, right?
Yeah.
But they're in there. But they're not necessarily yours that you've
Mm.
created.
Mm. Yeah. And with that, like in my culture, just before you go to the husband, you sit with people from your side of the family, the aunties, all the elderly people, even from the community. They come and sit with you, and they start telling you what is expected of you when you go to your husband, how you should make him happy, how you should look after whatever he wants you to look after, all those things, how you should behave, when your husband tells you things to do. It's like it's other women that will be telling you all these things before you go to the husband. And I find that a lot of the times, or maybe all of the times, it's all centered on how you should make him happy. So I just wanted to ask your opinion on this, or what's your take on the roles of a partner that are expected, who here often hear even people saying, oh, he makes me happy, or I need to make my husband happy, or even in cases where someone is cheating, and the woman is thinking, maybe I did something wrong, that is why he's going there, maybe I'm not making him happy enough, I have to do something, or I have to change something about myself to make him happy. So whose responsibility is it really, for a marriage that to be joyful, for that blissfulness, for that happiness? Whose responsibility is it really?
Well, in short, I would say that although there's so many controversial stuff that's having a controversy that's happening around them at the moment, I would say initially Will and Jada got it right when they declared that their marriage became a life partnership where each individual became responsible for their own happiness. Now, this scares a lot of people off because this is not what universally, this is not what we're taught. Traditionally, women, universally, women are taught to please the man, and somehow you will be rewarded.
Yeah.
Yeah. Somehow you will be rewarded, regardless of what it is, to keep his attention on you, to do whatever it's sexually, whether it's in the home or taking care of him, and somehow you will be rewarded. And quite a lot of women have resented the fact that there has been no reward.
Yeah, because you spend a lifetime, really. You've spent a lifetime expecting that reward. And, I've often said that you find when they say, oh, she's a strong woman, it's because you're expected to be tolerating all those things, and that's mistaken for strength. It's mistaken for being strong. And if you say, no, I won't let you treat me like this. If you stand up for yourself, then you're not strong enough. You've messed up your marriage. Like definitely something is wrong with you. Like that's the mindset.
Yeah. And this is why I feel like it's really not up to other people to say things to you, or to influence you in any way, right? It's really not about like looking at what other people think or how they can approve you, strong, weak, or whatever. This is why it's important to really go back to self, to recenter yourself by going back to self and ask your own opinion. Ask, what do you think? Like, what do you think of this? Like, is sacrifice really the way? Do I have to suffer first in order to be rewarded later? Is that necessary?
You find, with that, just looking at my own journey when I went through therapy, through counseling and all of that, that question was so hard for me to answer. When I was asked something, and I was referring it to my ex all the time, trying to balance to see if he's going to be happy with it. And then my counselor said, Tino, I'm asking about you. What would you like to see happening? It hit me. I was not used to thinking about me, thinking about that, what I think matters or what I want matters. And it really took me some time to think about that question to be able to answer it, and it's something that I find with a lot of women out there. Like every time, it's all about if I do
Other people before them.
yeah, if I
Yeah.
decide to do this, people are going to say this, or he's not going to approve. It's all about other people. And really, that journey to really finding yourself, that's what I'm calling this podcast, anyways, redefining yourself. That, like you're saying, you look back into, put that mirror on yourself, reflect, and see all these things that you holding on to, and really think about it, that is it really serving you in the end? Are you actually happy after all? Because you find nearly all the time it's about what other people are going to think. Like I mentioned to you, you have all these aunties and all these elderly people sitting with you, literally hammering you on how you have to make that man happy. And if something goes wrong, it's it's reflected on you again, that you need to change something about yourself, and make him happy. So
Yeah,
yeah.
it's really about learning to break the cycle. That we
Yes,
it's learning to break the cycle. The aunties are only ever advising you about things that they've always known, and maybe for
yes,
them it
exactly.
worked out well because their husbands and their things aligned with each
Mm-hmm.
other, right?
Mm-hmm.
Or maybe not. But they're only passing over what they know, and
Mm,
their situation could be completely different from yours, and maybe they
exactly.
are happy in the situation that they are in.
Mm,
And you have to really, like, my thing is, you need to honor yourself. I know women who've said to me that they've been wanting to be a mother since they were a little girl.
mm,
Now that is already a sign to me that you don't honor yourself. You don't think
yes.
that you're that important,
Mm,
because
mm,
to want the desire to be a mother, when you're to be thinking about being a mother from the time you're a child, you are already rushing to nurture somebody else, to give somebody else that attention, when you still haven't fully experienced it yourself.
mm, mm, mm,
Right, you still haven't fully experienced it yourself, which means somehow somebody in the household, your
mm.
caregivers, have not given you that type of attention.
Yeah, yeah,
Right,
yeah, yeah.
right. So, and that falls on a lot of women that who go through similar type of attention, that the things in taking care of other people, then they would be rewarded to it. But
Mm,
the you can never give anybody anything worth anything if it's not coming from a person that is fulfilled.
mm, mm, mm. Definitely. And I always say, people, react to the best, to situations, depending to the best of what they know, and
Mm-hmm.
they do the best with what they know. And really, yeah, and I always encourage people that sometimes it's all about educating yourself, knowing all these things. Because even talking about therapy, even in this day and age, in this 21st century, we still have a lot of people in my culture, they'll be looking at you and thinking, oh, you're going counseling, why would you do that? Like, therapy is something that's that's not
Yeah,
important. Why would you do that?
yeah,
Yeah, so
yeah. I mean, when I told my family that I became a psychotherapist,
mm,
and one of my auntie on a video conference was telling my other auntie about it, she was like, "Oh yes, 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 she's a therapist." Oh, and my other auntie's like, "What's a therapist?" And this is me just listening in,
yeah.
and she goes, "Oh no, she works with mad people."
Oh my. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, and I was like, not quite. In fact, I don't work with any male people, actually. But the only people who need therapists are the people with mental illness or
Yeah,
psychological
yeah, and
disturbance.
there's a stigma attached to that. I think I'm going to invite you again to touch more on that because that's a big thing in our cultures, in the multicultural communities. All
Yeah.
right. Yeah. So just one last one, before I let you go. Any other thing, any other advice, opinion that you would like to give concerning these, beliefs and values that people hold on to? I know you've mentioned before about, it coming down to the individual.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, is there anything else, any advice that you would like to give, especially particularly to women?
I would reiterate the fact that it is always down to the individual because it's
Yeah.
always your choice. Anything that you do, it's your choice. I remember when I was a child, one of my earliest memory
Mm.
of me, I guess, living a different life happened when I made the choice to go from A to B.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
And at 6 years old, and that was at 6 years old. So I'd always remembered that as a reference point that in order for something to change,
Mm-hmm.
I had to not even ask any permission if I could or if I couldn't. I just changed. I just made that change
Mm.
and things changed for me. And that's my earliest memory of me having the autonomy over
Mm.
my life.
Mm.
And I use that as a a great reference point because I was just 6 years old and you think you don't have any power. Like we all
Oh,
have
yeah.
power. And I use it
Mm.
because when we mention women who are in a domestic violence situation or financial abuse and where they think that they're stuck, that there is always a glimmer of light somewhere in your experience
Mm.
that can allow you to do things differently, to begin
Mm.
the journey for transformation, the journey for changing your situation, and
Mm.
you have to be in it to know which is yours,
Mm.
and that self-love is being taught, so it's been spoken about so often, and there's so many
Mm.
cards about it, there's so many workshops about it, like you
Yeah.
turn up to this workshop of
A lot of posts
self-love
about it on Facebook.
about posts about it, like
Yeah.
if you turn up to this workshop, you learn to love yourself. I'm going to tell you that is not how that happens, okay? Not if you have a brain that has matured
Mm.
and has all of this collective information that you've
Yeah.
collected over the years of how unworthy you are.
Mm.
To
Mm.
flip that switch is not going to be an immediate process. It just
Mm.
isn't, right? But the
Mm.
good news is that with repetition, the brain has the ability to change, to remold itself, to create neural pathways
Mm.
that I guess engage in new belief system, right?
Yeah.
But you will continue to oscillate to old thinking pattern and remembering your
Mm.
new belief system and going back and forth. But that requires a lot of awareness
Mm.
that
Mm.
I've gone back into this pattern again. And it's
Mm.
just really about remembering and bringing yourself back again without hating yourself or being disappointed, or because that's all part of self-hate, right? So
Yeah.
don't be disappointed. It's like, the way I see it is almost like self-parenting,
Mm,
is
mm,
reparenting yourself. So you teach that wounded part of yourself as a child that you would nurture. Same way that
mm,
you would nurture your own children, is same way that you would want to talk to yourself and
mm,
instill that worthiness in yourself that
mm,
perhaps your family members hadn't been able to do because they also didn't have the tools to do that, right? So
yeah.
it's really is redefining yourself involves reestablishing a relationship with yourself,
Mm,
and there is a wounded child in there, and you have to nurture that child
mm,
differently.
mm. Well,
Ah,
that's that's quite profound. That's quite
yeah.
profound. Thank you so much for sharing that. Oh, thank you so much, Stephanie. It was a pleasure to have you here.
Thank you.
Yeah,
Thank
I'm
you.
hoping
I'm
that you
glad.
could join me again. I can see, we still have a lot to talk about.
Yeah. Yeah, it's never ending. There's a lot.
Yeah.
There's a lot. It's a long journey that we've all,
Mm,
especially us women of African descent. There's
yeah.
a lot of journey. There's a lot of struggle. There's a lot of struggle that we have in leaving our old belief system and
Yeah.
not
Yeah.
really having a safe foundation for ourselves that we
Mm,
feel that can support us. Because if we go with those belief systems to our aunties and our mothers, they they can respond well to it, right? It aligns with their belief system, so then you feel the support there if you hold that same belief system. But if you
mm.
don't hold a belief system, you have to then find a new clan, a new mob, as the indigenous people would say, right?
Yeah.
That also share that belief, that support you with that belief
Mm,
system.
mm, mm. Thank you so much. Yeah. So it's been a pleasure having you on Redefining Self. Thank you so much for taking your
Thank you.
valuable time to chat with me. Yeah, hoping to chat some more. Thank you.
Thank you.